Yes, I would ask the chair who gave me the surprise that I would start speaking to bear with me for a few minutes so that I can finish. Now, let me share with you a little story that will give you a good example of why it seems to me Cuba will always come through at the moment that it's really important to do so. Some years ago, I was president of the Caribbean Studies Association. Many of you are familiar with it. It's the leading professional association of Caribbeanists that meets every year in a different place in the region. It had never met in Cuba, and I thought it was a good idea to do so. At the moment I made the decision, with the full support of the executive committee, it was 1989. Between that decision and the 17th annual meeting of the CSA in May 1991, a number of things happened. The Berlin Wall fell, Cuba entered into the special period in time of peace. President George Bush Sr. was not making things any easier. Half of the members of the CSA are based in the United States. And a lot of people said, do you want to drive CSA into the ground? Do you want to bring to an end this great organization? Nobody will go. This would be a total fiasco, like a dinner party to which most invited guests do not show up. Well, I worked very closely with my Cuban colleagues, as did many of my colleagues on the EC and the program chair and others. And we had the biggest meeting CSA had ever had. 600 participants, 400 from abroad, 300 from the United States, covered on a daily basis by the Miami Herald and CNN in the Palacio de Convenciones in Havana, despite all the restrictions and despite all the problems. So it seems to me there is a lesson there for all those who want to see it. But let me finish. Now I'll take a few minutes. We have a number of fewer speakers in the rest of the day. I understand it, so I take it I can have a couple of minutes. Let me look at the larger picture. Latin American countries, as they interact with Cuba, as they look at how Cuba changes, do not operate in a vacuum, obviously. They operate in a larger international environment. And this larger international environment has been changing as well, very quickly and very rapidly. I think it's not a coincidence that the #1 bestseller on the Foreign Affairs list of bestsellers is Fareed Zakaria's The Post-American World. And the title itself tells you into the sort of environment that we are moving into. The so-called unipolar movement has come and gone, leaving behind the debacle and the debris that we are witnessing in Iraq and also in Afghanistan. How is this post-American world different, and why has it opened so many more opportunities to Latin American nations which are taking advantage of it with a vengeance? Let me identify just a few, and this is my own take on this. #1, energy has become the main driver of the international agenda, displacing globalization. And this has changed the distribution of power quite dramatically. When globalization, that is the increase in trade in goods and services, is the main driver of the international agenda, TNCs, transnational corporations, are in the driving seat. They can shift production from one country to another and set their own terms. When energy is the driving force, energy sources by definition on a certain territory. Therefore, the power of nation states increases vis-a-vis these corporations. So we're seeing a very significant shift. The demise of the nation state, which has been forecast for so long, well, it isn't happening yet. And don't hold your breath. I don't think you will see it in the near term. And that, if you think about it, it's not a coincidence that perhaps the three most militant left nationalist governments in South America today, that of Bolivia under Evo Morales, Ecuador under Rafael Correa, and Venezuela under Hugo Chavez, are to be found in oil and gas rich states. And the reason they take these positions is not just because of some personal predilections. It has to do with this shift in power that we are witnessing away from TNCs and towards the nation state. A related point is that the economic resources are no longer the monopoly that used to have on it in the north. Let me give you just one number. And here in Jamaica, we're very close to the United States. Do you know what the total cooperation budget of the United States for Latin America and the Caribbean for 2008 is? $1.6 billion, of which 600 million are for Colombia. So the rest of the region, we're talking 1 billion. Do you know what the cooperation budget for Latin America and the Caribbean of Venezuela is? 8.8 billion. So we're talking 5 times in overall terms, 8 times if you take out Colombia. Now, this may not last forever. There are many things that you can say about this, but it is a fact. So this old notion that all the resources would come from the north and that the south would depend on them forever and ever is changing quite dramatically and quite significantly. You can also see it, of course, with the creation of sovereign wealth funds, most of them located in the south. Even my own country, far away, small Chile, is creating a sovereign wealth fund with the $30 billion it will have in foreign exchange reserves by the end of this year. And you can imagine the effect that has. The action today is no longer in the north, but in the east. And we had some comments yesterday from Minister Bartlett about China and how he's trying to bring tourists from China. Well, if you look at what is happening in South America, particularly for Chile, last year, the main export market was not the United States, it was China, displacing the United States. The third export market was Japan, the fifth was Korea, the 10th was India. 40% of Chile's exports go to Asia today. And you look at Brazil, you look at Argentina, you look at Peru, similar things are happening there. So the action is in the east, it is no longer in the north.